Hello! Day two of the drafts in the books. The 49ers finally made some picks, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. So, the night started with us. We were picked 33, obviously. Um, there was some chat we were trying to get out of the pick, but I don't think there was any offer that really grabbed us. We would later get criticised for not moving out of the pick and sticking with what we did. But I think when you look at it realistically, I think we decided who we were taking and possibly just didn't want to take the risk of dropping any further down. I note that once we made the pick, the Raiders traded out, so perhaps we thought they were looking at our guy because at the end of the day, like they're running the same system we are now. You know, Clint Kubiak. Actually, which one is it? I get them mixed up all the time. I'm pretty sure it's Clint, but I will just check that. Yeah, Clint Kubiak. Clay's the one that's still with us. They run the same system, probably value the same traits we do, and wide receivers. And so we stood pat and we took Deshaun Stribling, who I did not have that high on the board. He was on the board. I had other receivers ahead of him. I had Jeremy Bernard ahead of him. I had Chris Bell ahead of him. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But yeah, that's who we went with. And my reaction was my reaction was the same as it often is when the 49ers draft. You have to accept that they have their own board and they stick to it. We see it every year. They took Upton Stout last year way before most people thought he was going to go, and it actually ended up being a pretty good pick. Alfred Collins was a little high last year. That seemed to work out okay. We do this sort of thing, and we do it because we value certain traits in players. We trust our scouting, sometimes to our detriment. I'll come on to that in a little bit, but I think in general, like I look at the more I spent because I didn't do much on Stribling. I didn't think he was going to be a target for us, really, because I think his best position is the slot, and I don't really know that we need anyone there. Christian Kirk is obviously there for the time being, although he is only on a 1 year deal. Spent a little more time with the pick and actually became much happier with it, if I'm honest. I think he's got a lot of attributes we like. From a athletic, explosive player's point of view, I think you can get a little bit of size and his speed and his strength. I think he's just a really good athlete. But from the point of view of getting on the football field, which is a problem that rookie receivers often have with Kyle Shanahan, he blocks his ass off and he runs really good routes. And those are two things that will keep you in favour with Kyle Shanahan, no matter what he thinks of rookies. I mean, we've seen that rookies struggle to crack the lineup. We drafted Jordan Watkins in the fourth round last year. We've seen nothing of him. We drafted Jacob Cowan in the fourth round the year before. We've seen nothing of him. We drafted Dante Pettis famously in the second round after trading up. We saw very little of him before he was discarded. Brandon Ayuk spent time in the doghouse. Danny Gray never made it. Jalen Hurd never made it. These are guys that, okay, Jalen Hurd was injured, but the majority just never turned into the player that we wanted. And I do wonder if part of the reason we selected an older wide receiver, because he's one of the older prospects in the draft, part of the reason we selected him is because of the polish to his game. We have a bit more faith in him hitting the ground running. So yeah, all in all, I don't think I would have taken him necessarily, or I don't think he would have been in the first sort of 5, 10 names that my brain shot to. But when you actually look at it in isolation, I thought it was a decent pick. So no real issues with that. We were then supposed to come back at 58. That didn't happen. We traded down with the Browns. Now the Browns traded up a hell of a long way. They were picked 70 in the third round, so we accepted that, and we picked up an extra fourth in the process, which was an interesting trade. I thought it was a smart trade in the end. You look at what we ended up with. It seemed pretty sensible from where I was sitting. I think there's so little between like 10 picks in this draft that almost doing that deal is just kind of inconsequential. It almost just doesn't matter. And yeah, I was a bit surprised. I thought we'd make good use of it, but I think it's pretty clear we don't see a ton of value at the higher end. I think it made more sense when we came up to make our next pick, and we actually did make the pick. Oh, side note, we obviously traded D Winters in the midst of all this. I've written an article on that, which I'll stick in the comments. Short version is I'm ambivalent to the idea of trading him. I was never a huge Winters fan. He had good games, he had bad games, but he was an inconsistent player. Could be infuriating to watch at times. And realistically, he never carved himself out a full-time role. He was, he's sitting on his contract year. We brought Dre Greenlaw back, so he's not even going to be starting. And I think there's 2 young linebackers that were going to push him for playing time anyway. Check my article to read who those are. One of them's Nick Martin, but the other one might be a name you've not immediately thought of. So anyway, we come back we used that in the trade with the Browns to get the 4th rounder and come down to 70. At pick 70, I think we made my favourite pick so far. We picked Romello Height, the edge from Texas Tech. Really like this pick. Again, wrote on this. I'm waiting for it to go up, so I may not be able to provide the link, but I will provide the link to my author page, and it should go up tomorrow. There's also 5 articles from yesterday about yesterday that all went up today. So feel free to give those a read and let me know what you thought. Yeah, we drafted Romello Height, and I thought that made perfect sense. I've banged on for at least the last couple of weeks that I didn't think Edge was going to be first round or even second round. One of the reasons for that is I didn't particularly like the top edges. I think they all had question marks. Well, they were just quite dull players. But my big thing was, honestly, that if we were going to draft somebody, I think this applies in the first 3 rounds more than any other, which is why I'm not happy with the 3rd round pick, but we'll talk about that in a second. The other 3rd round pick, but we'll talk about that in a second. I think if you're drafting in the top 3 rounds, you need, especially with the contending window the way it is for the Niners, you need to be drafting instant impact players. And I couldn't see how the top edges were going to influence us because they were all guys that would have needed to be out there on base downs. In the case of guys like TJ Parker, who went to Buffalo, they were very similar guys to Mikael Williams, who we drafted last year, who solid players, good edge setters, and they'd move inside on 3rd downs to rush the passer. It's not that they won't be productive, they will. There's going to be some really good players in that group. Malachi Lawrence is a good player. Zion Young, who went to the Ravens, that's a typical Ravens pick. Here's an athletic freak of an edge with some off-field issues. Oh yeah, we'll draft him. And it'll probably work out for them. But my concern with a lot of the edges was that I thought we'd already made it plain, really, that our starting base 4 was going to have Bosa and Mikael Williams at the edges. Even though they both have ACL tears, which someone pointed out to me. Perfectly fair comment. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that's what I think the team thinks, and that's what I think the team is going to do. And I think they've made that very plain in the draft decisions, in the free agency decisions. They haven't looked for guys that were coming on base downs. So to me, it was always if we were going to draft an edge, it was always going to have to be a pure rusher, probably, who would be able to drop in on sub packages, coming on 3rd down, that kind of thing. I think Aldon Smith, when he was a rookie, a player of that caliber, with the potential to maybe go every down at some point, but mostly just somebody that can make some noise against the pass. And I thought, from a value point of view, it was easier to get those guys in the 3rd and the 4th than it is to get them in the 1st and the 2nd. There's an expectation placed on 1st and 2nd rounders. And also, you want to be getting more out of it than just 10, 15 snaps a game. So anyway, we took Romello Height, and I think that's the perfect player for that role. Really good rusher. Will get better with Chris Kokorek, whatever his name is. However you pronounce his name, the defensive line coach. coaching him. I think for the first time we've actually drafted a guy that he's going to get the best out of. Usually we acquire players like Arden Key, Cleve Farrell, Charles O'Menahue, but I think this guy is our first homegrown version of that. We couldn't do a lot with Robert Beale, but Robert Beale was never as productive in college as Hyatt has been. I really look forward to seeing what Hyatt can do. I still think we probably need another rusher, even if it's just a spell Bosa and maybe a different type of rusher. But I think from a starting point, pretty good. So yeah, at that point, like, I wasn't overjoyed, but I was pretty pleased with what we were doing. I think we managed to draft well. We picked up extra picks. Every time we got onto the clock, it seemed like there were multiple options at the pick, and rather than just pick because we were there, we moved back and we were comfortable saying, no, we'll wait we'll wait, we'll let our guys come and just see what happens. And, that's what we did. And at that point, I was thinking, great, we've got one more pick tonight. We got pick 90. Let's get a safety. Let's maybe get another edge. Maybe get another receiver, because there was a big run on receivers, but there was a few still sitting out there. Get a defensive tackle. Get a tight end. There was a big run on tight ends as well. But of course, it was a third round pick. So what did the 49ers do? We drafted a running back. So I would have had a problem with this anyway, because we've already got two running backs that are pretty young. Jordan James, who we took last year, who looks pretty decent talent. Isaac Guerendo, we took the year before. Patrick Taylor's on a contract. We filled the running back room, admittedly, with mediocre backups, but the other thing is we've got the best running back in the league, or one of them, in Christian McCaffrey. So, like, how much touches is a running back going to get? If it was a change of pace back, I might not have had an issue with it. But so, so we end up in a very odd position, and we take Kalen Black from Indiana. Now, Kalen Black is a decent football player, and I think possibly when the dust settles and I've calmed down a little bit, I might see some value. He's got very good one-cut running skills. He's low to the ground. He's tough, which I always like in running backs. Feels a little bit like Jordan Mason in the sense that he's a bit of a bruiser rather than like the player I would have thought we would have gone for. But my big beef with it is, one, I don't think we needed a player at that position, and two, I'm pretty sure he would have been there tomorrow. He would have been there at 107. He might have been there at 127. He might have even been there as late as our 5th round pick. And we took him in the 3rd. And it just feels like history repeated itself. Tyrion Davis-Price, Joe Williams, Trey Sermon, even Guerendo. I happen to quite like Guerendo, but I think that's the death knell for his 49ers career. And there was so much interior linemen on the board that could have made a difference, or could have added some depth and stockpile for the future. Okay, most of them are still there. I think the only one we actually missed out on in the end that I really liked was a guy that went to Pittsburgh, whose name escapes me now because it's late. Where was the guy that went to Pittsburgh? Who was it? Late in the 3rd. Dunker, Gennings Dunker from Iowa. Yeah, didn't like it. Don't think I'm going to like it any more than I did before. But you know what? He's one of us now. We'll support him. We always do. Was quite gutted to see Eli Raridon move to the New England Patriots as well. That's a very good pick for them. I think he's going to be a great player. Anyway, we're set up for tomorrow. What have we got? We got 5 picks tomorrow. Assuming we don't start trading around. I don't actually think we will, because we won't be waiting long tomorrow. If there is a trade up, it might be between 107 and 127. That's a long time to sit on your hands in the 4th round. And there is some value still out there. I sincerely hope we bring in a safety. I've got VJ Payne on the board. They met with the guy from Texas Tech, Wazalewski, I think it is. Got interior linemen like Drew Shelton, Bo Stevens, Sam Hecht, that I'd love to see us take a look at. Elijah Surratt at receiver is still out there. There's a couple of running backs still out there. I don't want us to draft a second one, but they were all players that I had rated higher than Kalen Black. So, yeah, a bit of a dark mark against the day in the end. It's provoked the usual caterwauling from 49ers fans on Twitter, and I can't really say that I disagree with it in this case. I think my exact comment was, that's a disgraceful pick in every sense of the word. And I feel sorry for Kalen Black because I actually don't mind him as a player, but to take him at 90 when you don't need him and he's not even projected to go for like another 30 picks, it's just. I get everyone's got their own board and consensus, and when you look at tonight, I think there was a lot of people that went against consensus, to the point where there's a lot of people still pretty highly rated on the consensus board, if you like, that are still sitting out there. But that just felt like a step too far. And if we hadn't made the same mistake like 18 times before, in the words of Blackadder, I don't think it would hurt me as much as it does. But as it is, need some time to process this one. All in all, though, pretty happy. Looking forward to seeing the guys get on the field, particularly Height. I get the impression I'm going to enjoy Stripling as well. Stribling, sorry, I keep calling him Stripling like the bloody Toronto pitcher. Because he reminds me a little of Jalen Hurd, who unfortunately didn't make it, got injured. But also like his play style, a little bit Jawan Jennings with speed, a little bit Debo Samuel. Both players I absolutely love, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, that's a 16-minute ramble on day 2, so there you go. I'll be back tomorrow covering day 3. Let's see if we get any of the guys on my little board. And yeah, I'll see you then. But until then, as always, go Niners.